Hey guys, I'm Spears and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about a active default and a passive default on the map of Mirage. So I'm going to start with the passive default. On a passive default, the goal is to spread your players out across the map and have one person watching each choke point. So you generally have a player apps just watching for the push, player underpass right here, player top mid, player ramp, and a player palace, just so you can watch for pushes, gain information. So how do you gain information? So let's say you're the apps player and it's your first gun round, and the goal is just to figure out what the other team is doing, how they like to play their sites. So if you're able to get into kitchen and you hear a guy up on cat and you see a nade come through, you can in your head say, okay, one's playing up cat, one's playing van. How you could just take a note on that. And if you're an underpass player, you'll probably be able to hear the guy up on cat as well. And as the underpass player, your job is probably one of the harder jobs in this default. So what you can do is you can either play passive or you can come up here and try to work bottom mid a little bit. You can ask the top mid player to flash connector, so you could maybe take this duel if there's a connector player watching under. If there's a window player like an opper, you can maybe distract it, like pop off a shot, or even if you're down here, shoot a little bit. Your mid player, if he has an op, he could maybe peek. Options are endless. You just need to coordinate with your top mid player. Um, just like the underpass player, the top mid player has one of the harder positions in a passive default on Mirage, because you as the mid player and the underpass player, you guys need to be communicating a lot. Like, oh, can you flash this? Can you, what do you see? What do you hear? And because you're almost taking mid control in this, and sometimes if the CTs make a mistake, you can actually get mid control off of this passive default. You can rotate. Anyway, I'm not gonna go in depth. Or just ramble. So as the top mid player, your job is not to swing out wide and die to the opper on their gun round. It is to watch for a push, see if they're throwing this strawless smoke, or one of the smokes top mid to try to take aggressive mid. You're just chilling here, seeing what's going on. If you are feeling confident that you can peek connector, you can do that. You have flashes, mollies, you can support the underpass player and vice versa. Yeah, and then the A-ramp player, pretty easy. You can just chill here, you watch, oh, okay, are they smoking it and nading it every round the second the round starts? Are they holding on to their utility? Are they taking you want to also watch for the push, just like every other position, and same goes for the palace player. The palace player probably has the easiest job. You're literally just posting here or wherever you feel like you should be holding from, and you're just watching for the push. You can't really get too much information. I mean, if you want, you could push up to here. You could be listening. Oh, okay, one's under palace, one's default, and you could try to figure out how they're holding the site to shape your executes. So if they're playing in CT, if you're not really hearing any noise and they didn't smoke ramp, I don't even know what I'm talking about, but yeah, if they're in sight, a standard A exec of a jungle connector smoke, a stair smoke, and a CT smoke might not be as effective because they're in the site and you're not actually pushing them off, right? So that type of information that you get as the palace player or the ramp player is pretty important. Same goes for the apps player. If he hears even 2 cat, you need to calm that out to your top mid and underpass player, but also they're not going to hold 3B. So if you hear 2 cat, you can actually push up to here and maybe try to work a pick. I think I don't want to just go on and on and on about a passive default, so I think that's the basics. Now onto a active, did I say active default or passive default? I think, anyway, passive default. But now onto the active default. So on an active default, or mid-control default, or whatever you want to call it, I'm just calling it the active default for the sake of the video. On an active default, your goal is to take mid-control. So generally what you do, or at least on Mirage, this doesn't apply to every map, but each map varies, but on Mirage, you want to put 3 people mid, 1 person A, 1 person B. Why 1 person A, 1 person B? Well, what you want to do is you want to make sure that the CTs don't get aggressive and get just OP positioning in Palace or all the way in apps, because then they can rotate the cat player over, or just they have a lot of information, so you don't want to give that up. And if they make a play, you want to be able to, you want to know, right? So you can make a counter play. Anyway, so like for actual mid control or on the active default, standard way to do this is go mid, you get some players out, have a guy peek here if he's feeling it, have a guy come bottom connector. You could even do it with 2 people if you wanted, but 3 probably works best because you can really trade, and yeah, it's just better in my opinion to have 3. But the goal of the active default is, unlike the passive default, you're letting the CTs make the play on the passive default. Unlike, oh, sorry, I screwed up the wording. But yeah, on a passive default, you're letting the CTs make the plays. You're like figuring out what they're doing. You're letting them throw the nades, letting them waste their stuff. But on an active default, you're pushing them back into sites. You're forcing them to make a play where they're very uncomfortable. So if you have mid control, you've smoked off snipers, and you're at this point, they have to, like, a guy has to flash over mid and a guy has to peek connector. And at the level that you're playing at, most likely, players just don't like taking those duels. They will feel very uncomfortable, and forcing them to do stuff like that will usually end in you getting an easy kill. So if you've taken mid control and they don't do anything, like they don't contest, they're not like pop flashing people in, they're not, you know, doing all this like stuff to take mid back from you, and they're pushed back into sites, you have the advantage as long as you haven't burned like 4 smokes. So if you just burn like a top mid smoke and maybe a sniper smoke, you have mid control, and you can split either site, you can hold, you can let them, you know, you can just, you have the advantage. Sorry for rambling, but yeah. What else should I add? Yeah, generally, with a passive default, there's nothing really too complicated that you're doing. Not a lot of stuff could go wrong, but because you're playing so passive and you're not really making a play, it's rare when you're playing better teams that things will go very, like, things that, it's very rare that things will go incredibly well because you're just not doing anything, but there's nothing that can really go wrong. But with an active default, you know, honestly, as long as you're trading, communicating, and you are able to win your aim duels, things can't really go wrong. So yeah, I don't know. Leave feedback in the comments. Yeah, this is my first YouTube video, so please, yeah, feedback, suggestions. If you want to leave a nice or mean comment, either or, it's very much appreciated. Thank you guys so much for watching, and yeah.